Alright, so this is going to get cut and put to the beginning of this segment. Alright, so now we're ready to build a solid modeler. Now, if you're one of those spree users that doesn't create geometry, doesn't create dimensions, but might occasionally want to create a solid model, then you could have jumped ahead to this movie. And if so, then you might not have drawn this geometry. If that's the case, you'll want to go back to your layer list and turn on the 2D print. And from the 2D print, you'll then be able to go ahead and build this solid model. Now, I have this part on the screen because that's what we've done so far up to this point, is we've drawn this geometry. We created some kind of bogus dimensions on here, okay? And then we're going to make a solid out of this shape. So if you've not drawn the part, that's entirely up to you. But if you have not drawn the part, then what you would want to do is turn on the 2D print, and then we'll go through the step to take the 2D print of this part and go through and make the solid model. So now we'll go back to our part. Now we're back to our part. Change it back to all. We're back to our part, and now we're ready to start building this solid model. Now for this next exercise, we're going to turn this into a solid model. Now if we do an isometric of this part, or if we look at it from any other view, if I get a front view, you see this is just flat 2D geometry. Okay, so we're going to make it a little bit more than that. So first, I'm going to go up to my layers. Remember our layers up here. I'm going to first make my solid layer active. Now there's nothing on that layer. If I double click solid, there's nothing on that layer. But I'm making it active so that I can turn my geometry off if necessary. So now solid's going to be on a separate layer. Now solid modeler can be accessible one of a couple of places. You can go up to create and hit the solid modeler, or if you do a right click out in the graphic area under create, you can hit the solid modeler as well. It opens up a little toolbar right here, and that toolbar can be docked wherever you wish. I would recommend it either having it docked on one of the sides. If you use it a lot and you have a higher resolution than I have, if you have enough room across here, you could dock it up here. I'm going to go ahead and drag mine out into the screen like so we can see it a little bit easier. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to use the solid modeler. Now, we're going to, all these exercises in this essentials group of tutorials, we're going to build solid models out of every exercise. So while each part may not cover all the aspects of a solid modeler, we will at some point get through all of these. But let's talk about what the basics are. First one is extrude, boss, cut, solid, which just simply means we're taking some geometry or a feature and we're extruding it, a distance, okay? Just extruding it. So it's a straight up and down extrude. Next one we have is a revolve, boss, cut, which means it's going to revolve it. It's going to go around some center of rotation. The next two are some editing things. Once we have solid models, we'll use either of these two buttons to make solid models. Once we have a solid model, we can then add a constant fillet or a constant chamfer. I say constant chamfer, just say chamfer. So you got fillets and you got chamfers. The next two are also editing tools. One is called split faces, which will take a solid and it'll split it. This is something we cover more in the 3 and 5 axis world, and we do cover those really extensively in the 3 and 5 axis tutorials. And then the last one is a merge faces, another one we use in 3 and 5 axis to merge multiple faces together. Now let's start by creating a extrude, boss, cut. Now if I pick extrude, boss, cut from the menu, the first thing that happens, it gives me a warning. It says the group geometry does not represent simple continuous curve. Well, that makes sense because I didn't group anything, did I? If I didn't group anything, then I can't use the solid modeler. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outside circle, I'm going to group it. So I'm just going to pick anywhere on it, and I'm going to do a left click to confirm it. Now it's grouped, and you see my group count is 1. All right? And so now I'm going to go in and we're going to extrude it. Now if we look at our print, we see that on the print the thickness in inches is 0.433. The thickness in metric is 11 millimeters. All right, so we're going to extrude this. Now I have my Z0 at the top here of the part, so I'm going to make this extrude go down. So I'm going to make the thickness go down. So I'm going to leave Z0 at the top of the part. If you're a turning guy, this is something we do a lot in milling. In wire, you might go the other direction. You might want Z0 at the bottom, and that's most common in wire. In milling, we usually put Z0 at the top. Again, we're not machining this part for now. All we're doing is we're just simply modeling it. So now we have our group. We're now going to click on Extrude Boss Cut Solid. When I do, the dialog box pops up and it says what kind of end type are you doing. And right now it says it's blind and it has a distance of 1 inch. Okay, so what I do is I simply can change this blind to one of several other choices. I can do what's called a mid-plane, which means it'll go 1 inch in both directions. I can also do an up to face or through all. Now the last two only work if I've already have a solid constructed, which I don't. So we're going to do a blind. And we're going to type in the distance, which is going to be 0.433. Now don't hit enter, because if you hit enter, enter's the same as hitting OK. It'll close this box. Now I don't want to go up, I want to go down. So I'm going to click on reverse direction. When I do, you see the direction of the preview goes down. So you see I now have blind 0.433, or if you're in metric, this will be 11. Okay, reverse going down. Okay. Now the rest of the picks, there is no draft here, but if it was, I could turn it on and put some draft on the wall. Okay. Active solid, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and then extrude as solid is what we want here. We don't want to do a thin wall, if you will. Now when I hit my OK button, it's going to now create a solid. So now there is a solid here. If I click on it, that's the face. If I do a right click, that's the SL or solid. Left click, say yes. I've now grouped that solid. Now the next thing I want is I want to cut out this geometry here into the part. So I want to group all of this geometry around these spokes, if you will. Now we could group them one at a time. I could click right here. In fact, when I picked the first time, it says it's a face. So I do a right click to say no. It grabs the solid. I do a right click to say no. It grabs the face on the bottom. Right click to say no again. It grabs that piece of geometry. I could then say yes. I could hold my control key down and pick the next element. Now this is going to take a while, right? Right clicking through all these elements. See, I'm right clicking till I get the right element. Do a left click while I'm still holding my control key down. That's kind of tedious. That's not the way to go. Easiest way to group geometry that's connected together is if you'll hold your shift key down on your keyboard. So if you hold your shift key down and pick any element along here, do a right click till I get that element there, and do a left click to say yes, it'll group all the geometry that's connected. Now we want to extrude this down 0.264 or 6.7 millimeters. So we're going to go up now. Once we have this group, we're going to click on Extrude Boss Cut. We're going to say blind. We're going to type in 0.264 or 6.7 millimeters. Now, if you were to drop down and hit OK now, which I don't want you to do, but if you were, all you would do is be creating a second solid of this spoke wheels on top of or inside of the original solid, which is not what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to use that geometry to cut the original solid. We do that by going down to where it says active solid, and we grab the pull down and it shows body 1. Now however many solids you have in this file will show up in this list. So if you had 10 solids, you'd have a list of 10 you need to go through to find the right solid. And it'll highlight it. If I click on body 1, it'll highlight it on the screen. Now what I do is I tell it what do I want to do with this. I want to cut it. Okay. Now if I said remove outside, it would actually remove all the material in the middle of the spokes. But I just want to do a cut. And so when I hit my OK button, it's going to now remove all that material inside the part, okay? Which is exactly what I wanted. And now the next thing I have is I've got these circles here. This circle that goes through the part, and actually these other holes go through the part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all those and do them all at once. A quick and dirty way of doing that is use your filter and say circle, put a box around the part, and now you've got them grouped. Now I'll show you another way you could group this too, is we could go up and change the filter back to all. And if you do a right click out in the graphic area and go to group, you get a little menu that pops up. And now I could say circle and turn that on. You can also pick and drag to the bottom and turn a checkbox, turn them all on or all off. We just want circles. And I'll hit OK. It's going to group all the circles. Now it gave me one extra circle, so I'll hold my control key down and take it out of the group. Right click till it says a circle, C. That says C. Right click again. There we go. C95. Do a left click, say yes. Now it's out of my group. So now I have 6 elements. Again, if you have trouble doing that, you can always go back, like I said a moment ago, hit circle, put a box around your part. The key is you want to make sure that you have only 6 elements in your group. You do not want this circle here. 6 elements in the group. 5 small circles, 1 big circle. Now once you have those 6 elements in your group, and again, if you make a mistake picking, don't panic, just hit escape. Go back and try again. Now we're going to do an extrude. Now if I hit OK, what's going to happen is it's going to build 6 solid models, which will basically be these little round slugs it's going to create. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to go down and say body 1. And this time the end type, I'll say through all. Now it says select body, and it automatically plugged in body 1. Okay, and I'm also going to now tell it to do a cut. Body 1, cut. Modify the target means it's going to modify the part itself, and let's hit OK. So through all, body 1, cut, and OK. And now it's cut this through the part. And now if I were to go up to my layers and turn off my geometry, I now see just my solid, which represents the solid for this part. Excellent. By the way, when I'm looking at this, one way to, kind of hard to see it from this view, but if I change it to this icon for view shaded wire, I can now see a shaded wire. Now, don't confuse that with actual geometry. What you're seeing is kind of a wire view that's superimposed on top of the solid. That wire that you saw there is not there. Now, the geometry that was there is there, but this wire that you see when you go to view shaded wire, that's again just something that's superimposed on the solid. Okay, so that's a little bit about the solid modeler. That's kind of a basic view. It's a simple part, not much to it, but that's the solid modeler.